In 1957, a groundbreaking horror film shook the industry, earning over 70 times its budget, but few have ever seen the original version. Hammer Films dared to redefine horror, pushing boundaries that many thought unthinkable at the time. Some of their most iconic works were deemed too violent, too provocative, or simply too shocking for audiences, leading to heavy censorship or even outright bans. What secrets lie hidden in these controversial classics, and why were they considered too much for their time? Fantasy, sci-fi, horror, rerun zone. The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. The Curse of Frankenstein changed horror cinema forever with its bold use of color. As Hammer's first color horror film, it showed audiences things they'd never seen before. The vivid Technicolor made the film's gory details pop in ways that both excited and shocked viewers. The movie stirred up controversy with its graphic content, especially Victor Frankenstein's brutal experiments. Scenes like the murder of Professor Bernstein and the creature's fiery end caused quite a stir. These violent images were so intense for the time that the British Board of Film Censors slapped an X rating on the film, limiting it to adults only. The controversy around the film's content actually helped make it a huge hit. The Curse of Frankenstein made over 70 times what it cost to make, setting the stage for more Hammer horror classics. This success showed that people were hungry for more intense, colorful horror, changing the genre forever. The Brides of Dracula, 1960. The Brides of Dracula was a 1960 sequel to Hammer's 1958 film Dracula. It took a bold step by leaving out the Count. Instead, it introduced Baron Meinster, a new vampire who pushed the limits of what censors would allow. The film explored vampirism through seduction and freedom, testing boundaries with how it showed the Baron's power over his victims. Censors kept a close eye on several scenes, including one where the Baron bites his own mother, which they thought was a bit too graphic. They also focused on how the film portrayed female vampires, especially when they interacted with the male characters. Even though the filmmakers had to cut some explicit content, The Brides of Dracula still packed a punch with its visuals. The movie's moody cinematography and detailed sets created an eerie feeling that made the horror more intense. This visual flair helped cement the film's place in Hammer's Dracula series, showing that what you don't see can be just as scary as what you do. The Stranglers of Bombay, 1959. From colonial India to the silver screen, Hammer's The Stranglers of Bombay took audiences on a controversial journey into the heart of darkness. Set in the 1830s, the film follows Captain Harry Lewis as he investigates the disappearance of over 2,000 natives, uncovering the sinister activities of the Thuggee cult. The movie shocked viewers in 1960 with its graphic content. Violent scenes, including ritual killings and deadly snake encounters, were seen as extreme even for Hammer. Critics pointed out the film's use of shocking visuals, which added to its controversial reputation. The Stranglers of Bombay also sparked debates about its portrayal of Indian culture. Critics said it reinforced harmful stereotypes and colonial attitudes. The Monthly Film Bulletin didn't hold back, calling it a particularly bestial contribution to the Hammer horror cycle that wasn't historically accurate. Before the next movie, if you like these trips down memory lane, please hit that subscribe button or consider becoming a channel member. It keeps this passion project going strong and means the world to me. Thanks. And now, back to the show. The Curse of the Werewolf, 1961. Hammer's next creature feature took a more primal approach. The Curse of the Werewolf asked what if a werewolf's curse began with an act of violence rather than a bite, pushing boundaries in ways that would shock even seasoned horror fans. Hammer's 1961 film gave its werewolf, Leon, a unique origin. His curse came from his conception, the result of a violent act between a mad beggar and a jailer's daughter. This controversial backstory challenged both audiences and censors. The US release had major edits to soften the graphic content. These changes altered Leon's backstory and affected how viewers understood his transformation and the overall story. Director Terence Fisher later said these issues led Hammer to avoid making more werewolf films. The restrictions made it hard to explore the complex themes he wanted, limiting future werewolf stories in their horror lineup. The Phantom of the Opera, 1962. Here we have a disfigured musical genius, a beautiful ingenue, and a rat catcher's gruesome fate. Sounds like the perfect recipe for a Hammer horror classic, right? Well, not quite. The 1962 Phantom of the Opera faced an unexpected foe, one that would prove far more formidable than any masked villain. Hammer's lavish adaptation of The Phantom of the Opera took a fresh approach to the classic tale. Director Terence Fisher crafted a tragic figure, driven by love and betrayal. But this nuanced portrayal came with a price. The original cut pushed boundaries with its violence and implied sexuality, including a shocking scene of the Phantom's servant stabbing a rat catcher in the eye. American censors demanded significant cuts, toning down the film's darker elements and softening key confrontations. These changes didn't just affect the film's shock value, they undermined the core themes of obsession and revenge that made the Phantom such a compelling character. The result was a version that struggled to find its audience, despite its high production values and Herbert Lom's powerful performance as the Phantom. Critics praised the film's gothic atmosphere, but many found it lacking in tension. The Monthly Film Bulletin called it surprisingly tasteful for a Hammer film, highlighting how far the movie strayed from the studio's usual fare. This unexpected tameness, along with the watered-down story, left audiences and the director feeling that the Phantom's motivations didn't hit home as strongly as they should have. In the end, The Phantom of the Opera became a cautionary tale about how censorship can affect creative vision. What could have been a bold new take on a classic story ended up struggling to connect, showing how outside pressures can change a film's intended impact and how viewers receive it. The Damned, 1962. With The Damned, Hammer Films was about to tackle something even more daring. Picture a film so unsettling it took years to reach American screens. What could be so shocking? The answer was a group of children with a chilling secret. In 1962, Hammer Films released The Damned, a sci-fi horror that pushed boundaries. The movie featured children who survived a nuclear accident, leaving them radioactive and immune to fallout. This idea explored the potential fallout of scientific progress and government experiments. The film's controversial themes, especially its portrayal of kids as radioactive mutants, delayed its U.S. release. American audiences didn't see it until 1965, and even then, it was trimmed to 77 minutes for theaters. Over time, critics have taken a fresh look at The Damned, now seeing it as one of Hammer's hidden gems. Film experts call it a sincere and outraged portrait of a world on the brink, noting how it captured Cold War fears. Today, the movie's bold ideas and social commentary have earned it a spot among the best British sci-fi films of the post-war era. The Kiss of the Vampire, 1963. From werewolves to vampires, Hammer's Creatures of the Night pushed boundaries. But for The Kiss of the Vampire, American TV was the real monster. The move to the small screen as Kiss of Evil changed the film's core and storytelling. TV censors reshaped the film significantly. They cut key scenes like the shocking opening and moments showing the vampire's true nature. To make up for these cuts, they added new footage, including a subplot about the Stanger family. This new material didn't fit well with the main story. All this editing messed with the film's plot. Without important scenes and character moments, the story became hard to follow. Both old fans and new viewers struggled to understand what was happening or care about the characters. Kiss of Evil showed how hard it is to turn big screen horror into TV shows. Trying to meet TV rules often ruins the movie's mood and story. In the end, the TV version was a weak copy of the original, failing to capture what made Hammer's vampire tale special. The Gorgon, 1964. From Greek legends to Gothic horror, Hammer Films took a mythological turn with The Gorgon in 1964. This unique monster movie brought the petrifying power of Medusa to a fictional German village, blending ancient myths with Hammer's signature style. The film's portrayal of victims turning to stone posed a challenge for the production team. Hammer had to carefully balance showing the monster's deadly gaze while avoiding censorship issues. They solved this through clever editing, especially during the final showdown, where the Gorgon meets her end. Despite these constraints, the Gorgon kept its creepy atmosphere. The monthly film bulletin pointed out the monster's belated, vague, and insufficiently spectacular appearance, showing how the film relied more on suggestion than outright horror. This approach split audiences. Some loved the gothic mood, while others felt it wasn't scary enough. The Gorgon stood out by giving its monster a human side. The contrast between Carla's memory-loss human form and her monstrous full-moon transformation created a tragic character, making the film different from typical monster movies. Rasputin, the Mad Monk, 1966. Christopher Lee's portrayal of Rasputin blended Hammer's horror style with historical drama. The film showed the Russian mystic as a complex figure with frightening powers, using them for his own gain and causing chaos. Hammer's take on Rasputin pushed boundaries with graphic scenes that shocked audiences. The movie was received differently in the UK and US, leading to major edits for American viewers. Scenes were changed to make Rasputin less intense, including cutting the original ending where he lay on ice in a prayer-like pose, seen as too controversial for US audiences. These changes affected how people viewed the film and its historical accuracy. While many praised Christopher Lee's acting, the film was criticized for its dramatic take on history. Critics felt it lacked depth and didn't capture Rasputin's real importance. In the end, Hammer's attempt to adapt the Mad Monk for different audiences might have watered down what made the character so interesting, leading to mixed reactions from viewers and critics. The Witches, 1966. From radioactive children to ritual sacrifice, Hammer Films was always pushing limits. Their 1966 movie The Witches dove into paganism and black magic, testing what censors would allow. The film's ending changed a lot before it hit American screens. The Witches was different from Hammer's usual gothic horror. It follows Gwen Mayfield, a teacher who uncovers a dark coven in a quiet English village. Director Cyril Frankel created tension by contrasting the peaceful countryside with creepy occult stuff happening underneath. The movie's take on occult rituals caused quite a stir. Scenes showing the coven getting ready to sacrifice a young girl shocked people. These parts played on fears about the supernatural that were big in the 1960s. When it came out in the US as The Devil Zone, they made big changes. They cut or toned down a lot of the witchcraft scenes, especially at the end. Even with these cuts, the movie still felt pretty creepy, showing that hinting at scary stuff can work just as well as showing it all. The Devil Rides Out, 1968. While The Curse of Frankenstein shocked audiences with its gore, The Devil Rides Out explores even more daring themes. In 1968, this movie delved into the occult, challenging religious sensibilities and censors alike. Based on Dennis Wheatley's novel, the film featured occult practices, including a May Day ceremony with the Goat of Mendes, a representation of Satan. The movie's serious take on black magic included ritualistic summoning and a satanic cult, testing the limits of what viewers could handle at the time. These scenes stirred up controversy in the late 1960s. The film's approach to good versus evil, without going overboard on violence or sex, made it stand out from other Hammer films. When released in the US, the movie was heavily edited. Scenes with blood and violence were cut, which affected the story's flow and intensity. As time passed, The Devil Rides Out has gained more fans. Modern viewers appreciate its unique take on horror and the occult. Christopher Lee, who starred in the film, even called it one of his favorites, praising its serious tone and themes. Censorship shaped Hammer's horror films in unexpected ways, pushing filmmakers to innovate and create more psychologically complex stories. While some scenes were cut or altered, these restrictions often led to more suggestive and atmospheric approaches to horror. If you agree or disagree, or if I've left out any of your favorite Hammer films, let me know in the comments below. This is Rich from Rerun Zone. Good night.